Okay, this is video number 8, and I want to see it as chapters. This will be chapter number 8 of these talks, and today I want to start discussing a little bit more with the concept that I already mentioned or brought into the picture in the number 7, and it's about evolutionary psychology. Now, evolutionary psychology is a psychology based in Darwinism, and Darwinism sees, and emotional psychology sees humans' emotion as evolutionary, and with the purpose of fulfill functions of adaptation. So humans, from what we were animals, monkeys, lemurs, or whatever we are, is our ancestry, we were developing these emotions because we were in the need of survival. So our survival is the main force, energetical force that is pushing us to function. Now, with this idea, there is very little room for free will unless you are in one of the fittest. So it creates also a pyramid where some people or some animals and then some people are more acting to become evolved and they're going to survive, and the other ones won't do that. With this idea in mind, with this psychology, particularly in this book, Emotions, Theory, Research, and Experiences, by Robert Plutchik and Henry Kellerman, which is a really interesting book from the 80s. This author established 4 main universal elements that they will create these emotions in evolutionary terms, and these are hierarchy, temporality, identity, and territoriality. Hierarchy, it's the idea of these authors and another evolutionary psychologists that it's an universal concept, and it says the concept of hierarchy refers to the vertical dimension of social life. In general, the major expression of high hierarchical positions are first access to food, to shelter, to comfort, and to sex. So this is also related with this idea of Freud about this mythology of that the children kill their father because they are jealous because the father has all women in the tribe, and etc., etc. So it's connected with that idea in a known and in an indirect form. The second universal trait will be territoriality. So it says here in this book, the second universal adaptation problem for organisms concerns territoriality. In every animal species, each organism must learn what aspects of the environment belong to it. So the second element is territoriality. All animals have the problem, including human, the problem of territoriality. The third universal is identity, and it says the third major problem that all organisms encounter, and which is generated by the nature of the social environment, is the problem of identity. Group membership, therefore, is a fundamental basis for survival. And the fourth element is temporality. And what is this author says for temporality? They say, from an evolutionary point of view, the purpose of the acquisition of skill is to enable the individual to survive as a reproducing adult member of a group. Individuals without support from other members of their social group do not survive for very long. Okay, so hierarchy, territoriality, identity, and temporality, according to this psychology, are universals. And being universals, also they have associated emotions to them. So for hierarchy, the emotions associated for them are anger and fear, and also they are connected with dominance and submission. For territoriality, emotions that are connected are exploration and surprise. For identity, the emotions that they are connected are basically acceptance and rejection. And finally, for temporality, and the emotions that deals with them are loss and distress. So having this picture, we can analyze a little bit this graph. I'm gonna analyze it for you very briefly, but I want you to see that we have subjective language, behavioral language, functional language, trait language, diagnostic language, and ego defense language. So what these authors are trying to do is to connect all these emotions through different ways of seeing them, and seeing the connections between all of them. So for fear, for example, the behavioral language is escape, the functional is protection, the trait, the psychological trait, is being timid, the diagnostic, if you have a pathology or you have any kind of diagnosis, this kind of fear going to take you to a passive type, and as an ego defense going to be repression. For anger would be behavioral attack, functional distraction, a trait aggressive, diagnostic aggressive type, and ego defense displacement. And so on and so forth. Then you're going to see joy, sadness, acceptance, disgust, expectation, and surprise. And they're going to have one for behavioral, one for functional, one for trait, one for diagnostic, and one for ego defense. Let's address for a second the idea of the main idea of Gestalt. I won't analyze Gestalt psychology in this particular video, but I want to mention the main idea, one of the main ideas of Gestalt. Gestalt means form, shape. That's what it means. And the idea of Gestalt psychology came from philosophy, from the philosophy of Brentano in the 19th century. I mean, it became a psychology itself in the 20th century, in the 30s and 40s. And Gestalt psychology, as I said, the main idea is this concept of that we create reality in our brains by certain simple principles. And you see, for example, the idea of the cup and the silhouette, the two silhouettes seeing each other, or on the other hand, you see the cup. So they have basic ideas. The Gestalt have emergence, reification, or multisability. Emergence is the process of complex pattern formation from simple rules. So our mind, according to the Gestalt, try to create like a whole by the pieces. Also is this concept of synergy. And another very important concept is the concept of reification. Reification is the constructive or generative aspect of perception, why I'm reading here, by which the experience perceived contained more explicit spatial information than the sensory stimulus on which is based. So we tend to create images from fragments and make it a totality in our brains. And the third element is multi-stability, which there are some objects that are not always sure which it is, but sometimes are the faces, sometimes are the cup. So basically, those are the three major principles for Gestalt. And seeing Gestalt, that is a way of perceiving. A way of perceiving, it says here, the concept of Prägnanz, which is a German word. It means pithiness. It means that, says that we tend to order our experience in a manner that is regular, orderly, symmetric, and simple. So we have the parts and we get the whole. So if we think in these terms, the idea of evolutionary psychology It's really interesting that it comes into by the time that Darwin was doing his research, Spencer was doing his ideological stance on this, and then so it's part of this also this impulse, this belief, this fashion, if you want to call it, of the times. So, but the problem with this is underlying a concept which is like the dog trying to bite his tail, and the problem is that it's civilization again. So if we go to the definitions that I gave in chapter 7, the last video, about civilization, if we got the idea that the civilization are all these marvelous things, and we relate to each other, we understand each other, we live more comfortable, we are not savages anymore, that we will kill each other. But remember, that's a Hobbes idea, a British philosopher, and the creator, the ideological creator of the state, secular state. So if we see all these things that contradict completely the idea of the survival of the fittest. And this idea is so important. I never hear anybody saying this. And this is paramount. It's so simple and so basic. Civilization is supposed to be represents humanism in terms of way we perceive it. Oh, we are back in civilizations. We're going to have food. We're going to have shelter. We're going to have friends. Nobody going to kill it. Anything that is like dark is non-civilized. Everything that is bright is civilized. But nonetheless, if we see evolutionary psychology, we see that the same traits, exactly the same trait of this primitive being, are connected with these emotions. So and the free will is castrated. So we don't have a real free will unless we jump into the ladder and getting up to the pyramid. And since you are the fittest there, you can exercise your will, free will. And the other one's going to serve you, because those are part of the temporality, the hierarchy, the identity, and so on and so forth we are being analyzing. So there is a sheer, a blunt contradiction here again. So what is civilization? It's a vessel for the fittest to remain fit among this new way of rationalization, which is a psychological defense, by the way. Or civilization, what is the real name of civilization? Or is that great, like Eden-like place? And obviously, if you do your research, you're going to find out that it's not this ideal place, but it's the same medicine in a different flask, with a different envelope, with a nicer face, but it's the same one. Because if you read it, and you're gonna feel like your stomach is like pretty dizzy, you get sick basically, because when civilization continue with this idea of the survival of the fittest, all the tools go to the more powerful one by definition, and it's perfectly okay. So the whole other rationalization, the next endeavor towards this, plays perfectly well with the idea of our beloved friend Edward Bernays in propaganda, because the fittest have to use their means in order to conceal their power. There are people that don't talk exactly in these terms, like Michel Foucault, but at the end of the day, it's Michel Foucault and everybody else in France at the time, the post-structuralists in the 70s and 80s, at the end gonna arrive to similar results. So I'm gonna leave it here for now, and thanks for watching today.